my choux pastry worked and that suddenly everything seemed to be coming together beautifully, though creating sponge sugar is not something I would recommend to anyone who values their fingers or their polished timber floors. That stuff burns on contact, sinking into flesh and floorboards like a hot knife into butter. Assembling the croquembouche involved dipping our custard-filled choux buns into molten sugar and stacking them inside a metal cone to create the tower shape. The profiteroles were meant to stick to each other, not the metal, and when the cone was inverted they were meant to glide out effortlessly and stand proudly on their toffee base. Sadly, I kind of glued my pastry into the cone, and when it was time to unmould, the top of my profiterole tower snapped clean off the bottom. The word I said next was bleeped out for television. I had just enough time to toffee coat a few of my spare choux buns and stick them on top, but mine was a very stumpy little croquembouche compared to Poe's, Chris's and Tom's. Not for the first time in this kitchen, and most certainly not for the last, I sat in a room with my fellow contestants, waiting for my efforts, for my heart, soul and food to be consumed, dissected and judged, and for my fate to be decided. Chapter 1. It's only the beginning. For nearly every baby born, there is a bewildered adult holding them with awe, fear, and a deep curiosity about who it is they are meeting for the first time. Who do they look like? Who will they be like? What will they be good at? What will they become? Whatever my mother's dreams and hopes were for me on the 31st of October 1970, she couldn't have had a single inkling of what was ahead for us. For one thing, MasterChef wasn't invented yet. Marlene Mary Joy McComish, née White, gave birth to me at St Margaret's Maternity Hospital in Darlinghurst, Sydney. My father, David McComish, had dropped Mum at the hospital and upon being told it would be a long wait, went home. The details of where he was for the next couple of days are blurry, but by the time the hospital finally tracked him down and told him he had a daughter, he had some news of his own to share. There had been a catastrophe while he was out. Our little unit, our home in Sans Souci, had caught fire. The record player, left on, had started the inferno. The lounge room was incinerated, but the nursery, filled with hand-knitted booties and jackets, was miraculously untouched. I was roughly 2 hours old when my newly minted parents, only in their 20s, had this conversation. They named me Julie Kathleen. The flat was rebuilt and I spent my first 2 years there. Then we moved to a house in Normanhurst, near Hornsby, in the northwestern suburbs of Sydney. Mum worked in insurance, and my father, who was born in Ireland but had lived in Australia since his early childhood when his parents had emigrated, was an air traffic controller at Sydney Airport. Mum's mum, my nan, was always a big part of my life. My first 2 months were spent with her and my parents after the fire had destroyed our home. She lived in Ryde, in the house her husband had built. Poppy Roy, as I've always referred to him, died when Mum was 16 after a brief duel with stomach cancer. Nan was in her 40s when he died, and she didn't look at another man for the rest of her life. Poppy was never far from the conversation, though. He was a practical joker, a larrikin, a skilled carpenter, a doting dad. He was remembered with such lovingly told, detailed stories that although I never met him, I felt his presence in my life. My paternal grandmother was less involved but still came to family occasions. My father was often away from the house for long periods of time. I don't remember much about that, but I do have very early memories of lying on the carpet in the front hall, by the door with the beer bottle glass, waiting for him to get home. Mum trying to convince me to come into the lounge room away from the front door, that he was at work and we weren't sure when he would be home. He wasn't at work. Mum didn't know where he was, but that's how she explained it to me. One of my earliest memories is from when I was